Some of the most unusual FBI files are those of missing people who vanished without a trace. There are a number of unsolved cases that the FBI is working with local law enforcement agencies in trying to solve, with each one strange in its own way. Sarah Nicole Graham disappeared 7 years ago. In that time, the FBI has been working with local police to try to figure out what caused the young woman to vanish into thin air. Investigators working on this FBI file believe someone close to Sarah knows more than they've let on, but currently her whereabouts remain a mystery. She was 18 when she disappeared in February of 2015. She spent her childhood living with her mother in Texas, but had moved in with her father and stepmother in Fairmont, North Carolina, about 6 months before she disappeared. She had a job at a local Walmart and appeared to be happy with the life she was making in North Carolina. On February 4th, Sarah was scheduled to work a shift starting at 7 a.m. and left the house in a white Chevrolet van at about 6:30 a.m. The drive should have only taken 20 minutes, but when the shift started, Sarah wasn't there. Sarah wouldn't show up for work at all. At about 12:15 p.m., police received a call about a suspicious vehicle parked in a wheat field near a tree line about 15 minutes away from Sarah's home. It would turn out to be the van Sarah was last seen driving, and it had been there since at least 6:45 that morning. The van was locked, something that would have needed to have been done manually, as the vehicle was relatively old. There was no sign of a struggle around the van or any indication as to where Sarah had gone. Sarah was reported missing. It was incredibly out of character to have just disappeared of her own accord. She was known as a dependable and reliable person and wouldn't have missed work without warning. Multiple searches of the wooded areas between Sarah's home and where the van was found took place. Each time, nothing that gave any clues as to what happened to Sarah was ever found. Over the years, police and FBI have conducted dozens of interviews, but so far no leads have led to any progress in the case. The FBI agent working the case has said that they found a lot of evidence, but because someone close to Sarah wasn't being honest with them, they didn't have everything they needed to solve the case. Strangely, both Sarah's father and stepmother had worked for the local sheriff's office when she disappeared. Her stepmother was fired about 6 weeks after Sarah's disappearance, after 23 years of employment. Personal issues were cited. It's not known if this had anything to do with the case or whether it was just a coincidence. It's important to note she hasn't been named as a person of interest. Sarah is described as a Native American woman, 5 foot 4 inches tall, and weighing 160 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She was wearing glasses and braces when she vanished. The FBI has a reward of up to $5,000 for information, which should be passed on to the FBI's Charlotte field office at 704-672-6100 or the Robeson County Sheriff's Office. Matthew Tyler Henry disappeared under unusual circumstances from a parking lot in Dunlap, Tennessee in 2018. Since the case became an FBI file, investigators have received more information and in 2019 announced that they hoped the case would be closed soon. Since then, there's been little update. Matthew was last seen on April 15th in a parking lot. He had driven there in his own vehicle, but met up with another man driving a Chevrolet pickup truck. They spoke for a while, and that's the last thing anybody is certain about. It wasn't until days later that Matthew was reported missing. He had no fixed address at the time that he disappeared, and it seems possible nobody realized he was missing. When he was finally reported missing, his car was found in the same parking lot where Matthew was last seen, with no clues as to what had happened to its owner. The man Matthew was speaking to was located by police and has been interviewed multiple times. That too didn't reveal anything useful for police to work on, and the information he gave hasn't been made public. It's not known if the man claims he left Matthew there, or if he drove Matthew to another location where they parted ways. A year after Matthew went missing, the case became an FBI file. With the added publicity and successful detectives working on the case, more information began to come in. An investigator on the case said in October of 2019 that they had a theory about what happened to the missing man, but it wasn't a positive one. Police believe Matthew is no longer alive, and somebody took his life. What clues or information they have that's led them to this conclusion hasn't been revealed. A few days later, they raided the home of a 64-year-old man as part of the investigation into Matthew's disappearance. Details about why the raid took place were never revealed, but police did say they were confident Matthew's disappearance wasn't a random act. Matthew's friends and family are still offering a reward to help bring Matthew home. Dunlap police are still investigating the case and can be contacted at 423-949-3311. The FBI is one of many organizations investigating the strange disappearance of American student Matthew Mullan. Matthew disappeared from Florence in Italy in 2003. There have been a string of unconfirmed sightings since then, but there are a number of factors in the case that don't make sense. Matthew was born in Massachusetts and had started studying at university in Connecticut after finishing high school. After 2 years there, he wanted a change, something his family supported him in. He was a talented artist, and they encouraged him to pursue his interests. That led him to taking a semester to study abroad at the Angel Academy of Art in Florence. Matthew kept in touch with family and friends stateside throughout his first month abroad. The course was harder than he had expected, but he appeared to be enjoying himself and making new friends. He spoke of plans to visit Amsterdam in March, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary to those who knew him in Florence. On the night of January 31st, 2003, he told his roommate that he was going to an Irish pub named the Lion's Fountain. It was a popular spot for American tourists and students. Matthew went alone, but bartenders reported that he'd been seen chatting with others at the bar and seemed to be in good spirits. He left at about 2:30 a.m. Apparently, he didn't appear intoxicated, though it seems possible his drunkenness just hadn't been noticed. It also wasn't noticed whether he was alone or with any of the people he'd been chatting with. This was the last confirmed sighting of Matthew. When he didn't return home, his roommate contacted authorities. Matthew's family were informed he was missing on February 3rd. Matthew had with him his driver's license, credit card, and international calling cards when he went to the bar, but had left his passport at the apartment where he was staying. However, none of the cards were used after he left the Irish bar. The disappearance got international attention, and over the next few months and years, there were a string of sightings of Matthew across Europe. If all the sightings are to be believed, he stayed in Florence for a while after he was reported missing, then traveled to England via Dover, on to Wales before taking a ferry to Ireland where he settled down. In one sighting in Ireland, he told a couple he was going to write a book about his travels. However, witness sightings can be unreliable. Police in Florence believe he had an accident on the night that he vanished and may have fallen into a river. If this is the case, it's unusual a body was never found, as this part of the river isn't particularly deep or fast-moving. The family still holds out hope that Matthew might someday be found. He's described as 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighing about 175 pounds, though later reported sightings claimed he looked thin and ill. He had dark brown hair, a surgical scar on his ankle, and a tattoo of a flaming shamrock at the center of his upper back. As the case deals with the missing person abroad, anyone with information should contact the American Embassy. When Nefertiri Trader vanished from her home in Newcastle, Delaware, in the early morning hours of June 30th, 2014, there was little doubt that foul play was involved. That's because in this missing person case, a neighbor witnessed an unidentified individual dragging Nefertiri out of her home and into her car. Unfortunately, the neighbor didn't realize anything was wrong until much later. They thought Nefertiri was ill, and the unidentified individual was just taking her to the hospital. The FBI file on the case now proves that this wasn't the case. It wasn't until much later that day that Nefertiri was reported missing. Her mother had been trying to get a hold of her all day but hadn't been able to do so. In the end, she sent Nefertiri's cousin over to make sure that she was alright. Her cousin found nobody home. On the front porch of Nefertiri's home was a packet of cigarettes and a now cold cup of coffee. On the front lawn was a loaf of bread that had been stepped on. After finding the strange scene, Nefertiri's family reported her missing, and police began to ask neighbors if they'd noticed anything unusual. It was only then that the neighbor reported the strange disturbance. According to the neighbor, he'd been woken up by a shriek at 4 a.m. and looked out the window. That was when he saw an unidentified man dragging Nefertiri to her car. The man was described as wearing tan shorts and a dark hooded top. Beyond this, there was very little information publicly available on the case, and little publicity about Nefertiri's kidnapping. There are, however, a number of theories, including the idea that someone may have been stalking her, or that a boyfriend, unknown to the rest of Nefertiri's family, had come around to visit only for things to go very wrong. It's not known if police were able to determine whether it was Nefertiri who had stepped on the bread, or the person who kidnapped her. It may seem like a small thing, but it would give authorities a shoe size to work with, and may have even provided information on the type of shoe the criminal was wearing. It's also not known where Nefertiri's children were at this time. Police determined Nefertiri didn't have a background that would explain the disappearance. She wasn't involved in any criminal activity, and her past didn't provide any obvious suspects or motives. Nefertiri was 33 years old when she vanished, 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 125 pounds. She has tattoos on her chest, arm, and back. Her car was a silver 2000 Acura. Both the FBI and local authorities have issued rewards for information leading to Nefertiri's location. Newcastle police can be contacted at 302-395-8110. Carla Vincent came to the United States on an exchange program that should have seen her stay in the country for a few months before returning to her native home of Brazil. But everything changed after she disappeared without a trace in an extremely strange missing person case. It was February of 2009 when Carla first came to the US and found a job at a restaurant and lived in a motel that she shared with other women who were part of the program. Unhappy with the situation, she moved out with a friend and stayed in the living room of a family friend's apartment in Newark, New Jersey, and got a job at a different restaurant. She was much more happy with this arrangement, as she told her family in daily phone calls to her mother back in Brazil. On February 9th, 2009, a male friend gave her a lift from her place of work to the Abeda Bar and Grill, where her roommate worked. She had changed out of her clothes into something more appropriate for the evening, but had her work clothes with her in a bag at the bar. She stayed at the bar until about 2 a.m. According to her roommate and other staff members, a man who may have been called Antonio had been buying her drinks. She left the bar with the man to go look at a photo and talk. She told her roommate that she would meet her back at the apartment. When the roommate got home, Carla's things, including her bag of clothes, were there, but Carla was missing. She hasn't been seen since. Even with the FBI getting involved and trying to solve this strange case, Carla's case hasn't gotten much publicity in the United States. A substantial reward has been offered, but there's been little progress in the case since Carla first vanished. The obvious theory in this case is that the man she was with was responsible for her disappearance. He was described as being in his 30s, about 5 foot 8 inches tall, and weighing 200 pounds. He had a fair complexion and short salt and pepper hair. It's believed there was a language barrier between the two, as he didn't appear to speak Portuguese and Carla didn't speak much English. It's possible that led to Carla being in a situation she did not want to be in. However, if this is the case, It doesn't make sense that the individual allowed her to drop her things off at the apartment first. This individual has never been identified though. It seems likely we won't get answers as to what happened until Carla is found. Carla was just 22 years old when she vanished. She was 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighed 140 pounds, and had blonde hair and brown eyes. She had a number of tattoos on her hip and back. The FBI and Newark Police Department are investigating the case and can be contacted at 973-733-4336. The missing person case involving Destiny Sanith, a 27-year-old woman from Philadelphia, started on the 4th of March 2022 when she mysteriously disappeared. On that day, Destiny asked if she could borrow her mother's car as she was planning to travel to Southwest Philadelphia where she would be visiting a friend. She stated that she would be returning home that evening and her mother agreed. But when she failed to arrive back home that evening, her family became concerned and she was reported as missing the following day. It was then discovered that the New Jersey State Police had been in contact with Destiny after they responded to a call of a suspicious person in the Folsom area. During this incident, Destiny's mom's car was found unattended to near a strip mall at 301 East Black Horse Pike in Williamstown. They had a brief discussion with her and then helped move her car into a nearby parking lot. They then gave her a ride to a nearby Wawa convenience store, located approximately a mile away. Her family managed to view CCTV surveillance footage from multiple establishments in the area, and during which she was seen entering the Wawa store where she bought something to drink. She can then be seen walking across the street at around 9 a.m. to a Sunoco gas station where she walks behind the building and out of sight. She has never been seen again. Destiny is described as having short, wavy brown hair and brown eyes. She's 5 foot 3 inches tall and weighs 160 pounds. She was last seen wearing a black Nike jacket, black sweatpants, red and white Jordan sneakers, and she was carrying a backpack. Anyone with information on Destiny's disappearance can contact the Troop A Buena station at 609-561-7267 or the South Detectives at 215-686-3013. Destiny's NamUs case number is MP90301. 25-year-old Alex Bradley mysteriously disappeared from her hometown in Nottinghamshire, England, following a fire that had broken out at her house. At around 7 p.m. on the 28th of May, 2022, emergency services were called out to Alex's house after the fire had broken out, and initially it was feared that she may have been trapped in the building. But it was soon ascertained that she had in fact already left the property without notifying any of her family members. Investigators later learned that Alex had been visiting with her parents in Nottinghamshire earlier in the day, and that they were the ones that reported her as a missing person after she failed to return as planned. The cause of the fire has not been determined as of yet. She was then spotted on a CCTV surveillance system walking along Colecart Road in Birstall, West Yorkshire, and it's believed that she was headed towards the services at the junction of the A6 and A46. Detective Inspector Mark Brennan stated that they have concerns that Alex may have been hurt during the fire, and her family is very concerned for her safety. Despite local searches and appeals by police for any information from the public on the case, no further leads have been uncovered, and Alex remains missing. She is described as very thin, standing 5 foot 2 inches tall, with bleach blonde hair that has grown out a few inches, showing her natural hair color at the roots. At the time of her strange disappearance, she was wearing her hair in a bun, though this isn't how she normally wears it. On that day, she was wearing black jeans and a parka-style jacket with a hood. She also had a black bag with her at the time. If you or anyone you know has information on Alex's whereabouts or the circumstances surrounding her inexplicable disappearance, you're asked to call emergency number 999, quoting incident number 524 of the 28th of May. Frank McKeever, a 63-year-old man from London, has been missing since the 9th of September 2021, and investigators have now asked members of the public who may have information on the case to come forward. Frank is known to often visit the area of Hackney, though it isn't known if he traveled there on the day of his disappearance. He was last seen walking along Highbury Park on the 9th of September. Investigators later revealed that they had tracked his movements via CCTV surveillance footage of the area, and this footage was released to the public in hopes that someone may remember seeing him that day. They have also released photos of a rucksack similar to the one that Frank was carrying that day, stating that they are very interested in finding it. A reward of $20,000 has been offered to anyone with information leading to Frank's whereabouts. Police stated that they believe foul play to be involved in Frank's disappearance, and they strongly suspect that he's come to serious harm. Since his disappearance, his cell phone and bank account have not seen any activity. After a probe was launched by the Met Police, a 46-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman were arrested in connection to the case. They've been charged with suspicion of murder, while a third suspect, a 45-year-old woman, was charged with suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. All three of the suspects have been released under investigation for the time being, though Frank's case is still ongoing. As part of the search effort, specialists from the Marine Policing Unit searched the Regent's Park Canal in North London, but to no avail. Frank was last seen wearing a black bomber jacket, a black top, dark pants, and black shoes. Anyone who may have seen Frank or has any information on what may have happened to him is asked to call 101 or tweet at METCC, quoting case number CAD 3224/13NOV21. If you prefer to remain anonymous, you're asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 0800-555-111 or submit a tip online at crimestoppers-uk.org. 28-year-old care worker Alice Byrne has been missing since New Year's Day of 2022, when she mysteriously disappeared while visiting a friend in Edinburgh, Scotland. Police believe that after she left her friend's home, she walked towards the promenade and beach, which are located nearby. On the 1st of January, Alice left her friend's house in Marlborough Street at around 10 a.m. Her family reported that they had seen her about 8 hours prior to her disappearance, and she had told them that she was heading to a beach party. When it became apparent that Alice was missing, an investigation was launched in which door-to-door inquiries were carried out in the Portobello area. Local residents were asked to check their outbuildings and sheds in case Alice had looked for shelter, but this came to no result. Words of Alice's disappearance soon spread through the community, and they rallied in an effort to find her. Searches were undertaken of the area where she was last seen, but these were soon canceled by the police, as they didn't want members of the public to be put at risk or to possibly compromise the existing investigation. Business owners and residents in the area have taken to displaying flyers of Alice in hopes that she may be recognized by someone who has information on her case. On the 6th of January, Scotland police officers conducted a search of the beach at Portobello with the help of helicopters and a dog unit, but this yielded no results. The following day, officers from Police's Scotland's Air Support Unit arrived from Glasgow to conduct another search of the beach, this time using drones, but again, this proved unsuccessful in finding Alice. Investigators later revealed that their inquiries indicate that Alice had entered the water alone, though it isn't known what happened after that. Thanks to CCTV surveillance footage from the area, investigators were able to determine what Alice was wearing at the time that she mysteriously vanished. In the footage, she can be seen wearing a black top, black ripped jeans, and white shoes. She's also carrying a khaki-colored jacket. Alice is described as standing around 5 foot 6 inches tall, with a medium build and short black hair. Anyone who may have seen Alice, or who has any information on her disappearance, has been urged to dial 101, quoting case number 0647 of January the 2nd. The missing person posters that have been put up also include the numbers 07510 062206 and also 07864 796 730, which can be dialed if any information comes to light. On the 1st of May, 2022, 32-year-old Tawny Shanks, who was originally from Queensland, Australia, traveled from her home in Merida, Mexico to Cancun with her estranged husband, Jorge Astudillo, and their 2-year-old daughter, where they planned to have a holiday. The following day, the family checked out of their hotel, and Tawny's white 4-wheel drive vehicle was spotted by toll road cameras as they headed towards Merida. But the footage also shows that at around 12 p.m., they made an abrupt U-turn. Then, at around 9 p.m. that night, Carlos Santos, a man who was on vacation with his family, found Tawny's daughter, Adeline, wandering barefoot outside of a church in Cancun. He stated that a man had pointed the girl out to him and promised that he would be back soon, but he never returned. After contacting the police, he started sharing pictures of Adeline on social media, resulting in her grandmother, Leanne, and Leanne's brother, Ben, recognizing her a few days later. Adeline was unharmed, and she's now living with her grandparents in Queensland, Australia. Tawny's car was later found that same night in the town of Puerto Morelos, 25 miles from Cancun. It was found to have completely burned out, and Tawny has remained missing ever since. Police believe that the 8-hour period between the afternoon and the evening of the 2nd of May holds the answers to Tawny's disappearance, as there's no account of what transpired during that time. They have, however, stated that they're working on 2 different theories that they hope will help solve the case. The first is that there was an incident between Tawny and Jorge, and that he's currently on the run or possibly in hiding after being involved in her disappearance. The second theory holds that Jorge may have been involved in illegal activities in Mexico, and that Tawny may have been abducted by a cartel as payback. In an interview with 60 Minutes, Quintana Roo State Attorney General Oscar Montes de Oca Rosales revealed that Jorge had been threatened by a cartel in the past, and on that occasion, he went as far as to hire a bodyguard as he was in fear of his life. It also came to light that Tawny had sent a text to a friend in which she told her to keep the name Jorge Astudillo. She stated that if anything were to happen to her, police should go after him. Tawny's brother Ben has offered a $70,000 reward for any information on the case. Police advised Ben that a reward would be unwise as they would be inundated with false leads, but not a single tip has been received since. The mysterious disappearance of Vladimir Bastl occurred during winter in the Czech Republic under bizarre circumstances in 1999, and he remains a missing person to this day. At the time of his mysterious disappearance, Vladimir was doing work on a house, and he was known to be a diligent and timely worker. And so when his coworkers noticed that he hadn't arrived at work that morning, they immediately became concerned. When they checked the house that he was working on, they found no trace of him. The lights hadn't been turned on, and there was no indication that he had been there at all that morning. His coworkers immediately informed their boss, and he went to Vladimir's house to see why he had gone missing from work. At the house was Vladimir's dog and his uneaten breakfast. His boss hoped his missing worker would be found by letting his dog loose. The dog followed its owner's scent through the snow to the footprints that mysteriously disappeared after a short distance. The loyal dog refused to budge and had to be carried away by the boss before it too went missing in the wilderness like its owner had. The mysterious disappearance was soon reported to police, and a search was undertaken with the aid of firefighters, the military, and volunteers from neighboring areas, but to no avail. Locals from the area later reported that dogs all over the neighborhood started mysteriously barking after the disappearance of Vladimir. 3 days after Vladimir's unsolved case started, his dog also went missing with no explanation. Everything from paranormal to extraterrestrial encounters to a hit and run have been proposed, but none have ever been proven. Vladimir remains a missing person decades later, and the unsolved mystery of his disappearance is one that has left everyone involved in the case thoroughly perplexed. 35-year-old Paul Ryan Mayle, a man from Utah, became a missing person in February of 2021, and he has never been found. On the 20th of February, Paul was visiting his ex-girlfriend in Reno, Nevada, and had made plans to attend his son's birthday at his ex-wife's house in California 2 weeks later. During his time in Reno, Paul did some gambling and managed to win some cash before mysteriously disappearing. No one realized that Paul had gone missing until he didn't show up for his son's birthday as planned, and only then was he reported as a missing person. The police were informed that Paul suffers from a condition which can cause seizures. There are concerns for his health because he's believed to have possibly been traveling on foot at the time of his unsolved disappearance. Paul is described in his missing person report as having brown hair and green eyes. He's 6 feet tall and weighs 150 pounds. He walks with a limp as the right side of his body has been affected by his condition. He can also be identified by his tattoos, which include a Grateful Dead tattoo covering his entire left arm, a handicap symbol on his left wrist, and the words Carly Sunflower on his chest. At the time when he was last seen, he was wearing a tie-dye face mask and socks, a blue coat with a black undercoat, gray shorts, black Nike sneakers, and a gray hat with the words Park City printed on it. Anyone who has information on Paul's unsolved case is urged to contact 909-918-2305. Paul's Name Us case number is MP78996. In May of 2020, 41-year-old Marsha K. Lyle from Alabama became a missing person while on her way to visit with members of her family. Marsha has a mental condition believed to be the result of a brain tumor that doctors do not want to risk operating on. Marsha was obligated to check in with her mother and sister every Tuesday and Thursday, since they were her legal healthcare surrogates. On the 27th of April 2020, Marsha spoke to her sister on the phone, and nothing sounded bizarre. She was excited about a video of her nephew learning how to walk. On May 3rd, after a week of leaving voice messages with no response, she asked the police to perform a wellness check. Marsha had not gone missing because police found her in her bed. Her family still couldn't reach her by phone, though. 2 days later, the property manager at her home also checked on her, and he stated that she was still in bed but acting bizarre. Marsha's neighbors later reported that they saw her packing her car that same evening, before disappearing to an unknown destination. Her bank records show that she stopped at a gas station in Lake Pena, Florida, on the 6th of May, 2 days before her disappearance. And on the 7th, she booked a room at the Pot LaBelle Inn, staying for 7 days, but she checked out the next morning. At 3:35 p.m., she was spotted by security cameras at a Walgreens pharmacy in Jacksonville on May 8th. 3 hours later, she walked away from her car after parking it at a shopping plaza next to Phillips Highway. It would not be towed away until the 21st of May. Upon reviewing the security footage, her family noted that Marsha moved like she had aged decades overnight, and they believe she was moving like an old woman because she was so disoriented. When her mother couldn't reach her the next day, she filed a missing person report in Russell County. Police were able to retrieve a final image of the missing person at a pharmacy in Riverside. And even though the family thinks it was her, this time she had a completely different hairstyle. Marsha's family believed that she was trying to get to Clewiston to see her mother or Orange Park, where her sister had lived before. Marsha has black hair and brown eyes. She's 5 foot 3 inches tall and weighs between 135 and 150 pounds. She's known to wear a long wig, scarf, or head wrap, and she has a small amount of gray hair above her forehead. If you or anyone you know has any information on Marsha's mysterious disappearance, you're asked to contact the Russell County Sheriff's Office at 334-298-6535. Marsha's Name Us case number is MP69333. A $50,000 reward has been offered by an anonymous donor for information in the unsolved disappearance of 29-year-old Cornelis Casey Frederick Buckslag from Salt Lake in Utah in June of 2022. At the time, the U.S. Marine veteran was working as a ranger at the Salt Lake City watershed, as he had done during the summertime since 2019. On the 6th of June, he was captured by a security camera at 11:40 a.m. as he left his apartment to go to work. He was scheduled to undergo a virtual training session that morning, but he became a missing person sometime between leaving his apartment and going to work, and his whereabouts remain an unsolved mystery ever since. He was reported as a missing person to the Salt Lake Police Department by his parents on the 8th of June. On the day of his mysterious disappearance, his abandoned silver Suzuki SX4 was found with the license plate removed. The car was recovered near the Wyoming border at the Castle Rock exit off of Interstate 80. What was especially strange was that little effort had gone into concealing the missing vehicle. It was very easily spotted by anyone driving down this road. This has since led to theories that the car could have been stolen and then quickly dumped someplace random. When investigators pinged his cell phone, it was found to be close to the 2100 South and 300 West in Salt Lake City, but soon after it was switched off. Somehow, $100 had been withdrawn from his bank account on the same day as his disappearance. It was the last trace of his existence that investigators were ever able to find. Investigators do not suspect that Casey has met with foul play, though they aren't sure whether his car had been wiped clean, since they only found a few fingerprints inside. Casey is described as having blonde hair and gray eyes. He weighs 140 pounds and stands 6 foot 2 inches tall. He's known to wear green cargo pants with a t-shirt, a cap, and either military-style boots or sneakers. At the time of his unsolved disappearance, he had with him a Google Pixel 3, a multi-tool with a carrying case, a black backpack with binoculars, a water bottle, and a first aid kit. He's also believed to have a 9mm that was never found. Anyone with information on Casey's unsolved case is urged to contact the South Salt Lake Police Department at 891-412-3664. Alternatively, you can contact the Valley Emergency Communications Center at 801-840-4000, quoting case number LK2022-18693. 53-year-old resident of Blue Springs, Missouri, Edward John Abeda, who goes by John for short, was reported as a missing person in June of 2016, after he had been involved in a traffic accident, and his mysterious disappearance remains an unsolved case. On the morning of the 24th of June of that year, John made a trip to Lumberton, New Mexico to do repairs on the home of a family member who had passed away. He intended for a family friend named Vanessa to oversee the rest of the repairs and the work with contractors that summer. After staying with Vanessa at the cabin for 5 days, he totaled his car between a concrete barrier and a telephone pole on his way back home on June 29th. By 12 hours later, he would have mysteriously disappeared. Vanessa and John both denied medical treatment from an ambulance, and the tow truck driver later dropped them off in Rocky Ford at the Uptown Video Store. Uptown Video Store is where everyone buys bus tickets in the small town, but they were not open until 1 in the afternoon. Vanessa and John wanted a ticket to Kansas City. He only had enough money for 1 ticket and randomly forgot about his debit card, possibly as a result of his accident. He bought a ticket for Vanessa and hugged her goodbye. It was the last time anyone would see him before he mysteriously went missing, never to be found. His wallet and cell phone were left behind at a candy store he had visited while waiting for the video store to open. No one saw what direction he went in when he left. Missing from the wallet was his debit card and driver's license. The card has not been used since his mysterious disappearance. He left at least 5 voicemails to his cousin Leora, including one at 4:30 in the morning shortly after his car was totaled. During this audio recording, he sounded confused and unaware of the road he was on. At 1:30 in the afternoon, he sounded a little better but said that he felt tired and wanted to talk to her so that he could stay awake on the way home. It's believed that John may have had amnesia from the accident. John's family also told investigators that he has bipolar disorder, and at the time of his unsolved disappearance, he had stopped taking his medication as prescribed. According to his wife, Martha, he's been known to say he's going to disappear forever when he goes off his medication, but since he's never done this before, she does not believe this is the cause. One theory suggests that John could be institutionalized in a hospital. Others speculate that he could have ended up in a homeless shelter. A third theory for why he went missing was that he was recruited by local farmers to be used for labor, which was not uncommon for the rural town that he mysteriously disappeared in. A final possibility is that he was ready to end it all and was never found. John has black and gray hair, brown eyes, and he stands 6 foot 3 inches tall. He weighs 200 pounds, and at the time of his mysterious disappearance, he had a full beard. The last time that he was seen, he was wearing black jeans, white sneakers, wire-rimmed glasses, a gold wedding ring on his left hand, and a green camo ring on his right hand. If you have any information on this missing person case, you're asked to contact the Rocky Ford Police Department at 719-254-3344 or the Blue Springs Police Department at 816-228-0151. John's NamUs case number is MP34928. CCTV footage showing the last moments of Stephen Duran's life before he vanished without a trace has been of little help in finding out what happened to the missing man since his 2018 disappearance. On that October day, Stephen walked out of a store in Manchester and mysteriously disappeared to an unknown destination, never to be found again. Since then, the darkest moments of his life continued to go unexplained, and his strange mystery remains unsolved. There has been very little publicity surrounding Stephen's unsolved case, who was 31 years old with cerebral palsy and an unspecified mental health problem when he went missing. His medical issues meant he needed daily medication. Case investigators may have never solved the mystery, but they were able to piece together a general timeline of the events that happened before Stephen vanished without a trace. He had spent the night of October 18th with his sister at her home in Lancaster. The following day, Stephen's debit card was used at an ATM to withdraw cash. There wasn't a lot of money to be found in Stephen's bank account. Crime investigators still aren't sure if Stephen was forced to pay an ATM transaction, or if he simply preferred using cash rather than paying by card. All people know is that Stephen didn't return home that day, or to his sister's home. It would be a few days before Stephen's family reported him to police as a missing person case. Using CCTV footage as evidence, police were able to discover more clues. He was caught on camera in Manchester early in the morning of October 20th. At 7 a.m., he was caught on camera again. This time, he was found purchasing a soft drink at a convenience store. A few hours later, he was spotted at another convenience store not far away. Although much footage exists, only a short video of the missing person was ever made public. Keeping most of the evidence secret is a common investigation tactic to verify the details of any future leads. Stephen's family knows of no reason why he would have gone to Manchester, and unraveling this piece of the puzzle could be key to solving the mystery. They described Stephen as an extremely open and friendly person. Police hope that someone will remember having a conversation with him in the days leading up to his disappearance. In his missing person report, Stephen is described as mixed race, 5'10" and stocky with cropped dark hair. He walks with a noticeable limp, which was visible in the CCTV footage shared by police. Anyone with information on this unsolved case should contact the UK non-emergency phone line by dialing 101. 31-year-old Kiara Lyn Foley was last seen on April 21st, 2021 in Eureka, California. At the time of her disappearance, Kiara and her dog, Bubbles, were homeless and often hopped from place to place. Her family and friends would later tell investigators that it wasn't unusual for Kiara to be gone for months at a time as a result of her transient lifestyle. In June of 2021, Kiara was reported as a missing person when she failed to make contact with friends or loved ones, and the Eureka Police Department became involved in the investigation. Despite having a suspect in custody, Kiara's disturbing missing person case remains unsolved. After Kiara was reported missing, the Eureka Police Department released information to the media in which they stated that 40-year-old Jason Michael Crow Miller was responsible for Kiara's strange disappearance. The Eureka Police Department received stories said to be true from 3 separate witnesses. All of the details in their stories implicated Jason as the person responsible for Kiara's disappearance, at which point he was criminally charged. Investigators have never been able to uncover the whereabouts of Kiara's missing body, and additional case details about her unsolved disappearance are being withheld. Those who last saw Kiara in April of 2021 claimed that she and Jason had only known each other for a matter of weeks. The witnesses who testified against Jason claimed that he was paranoid and believed that Kiara was going to steal from him. But without a criminal confession, this motive is difficult to prove in court. Case investigators highly believe that Kiara met with foul play, but officially her strange disappearance remains unsolved. Kiara Lyn Foley is described as a white female with black hair, brown eyes, 5'3" and 125 pounds. Her ears are pierced and she has a dermal piercing on her right cheekbone. Kiara also has several tattoos on her neck, forearm, hands, shoulders, and fingers. Anyone with information is asked to contact Detective Corey Watson of the Eureka Police Department at 707-441-4044, quoting case number 21003-145. 32-year-old Otis Harris III was described as a hard-working and kind man who was well-loved and well-respected in his job as a special education teacher in Fort Worth, Texas. On June 15, 2021, the day of his mysterious disappearance, Otis would make an early morning phone call to his mother that would ultimately be his last. Over a year has passed since Otis was last seen or heard from, and investigators are still trying to get to the bottom of this chilling missing person case. At around 3 a.m. on June 15, 2021, Otis called his mother as he walked his dog before work. His mother thought it was unusual that he would call at this hour, but the conversation seemed relatively normal. They said goodbye, and Otis later got no response when he tried to call his mother again at 4 a.m. When she woke up at 8 a.m., his mother tried to call him back before going to work. She spent the rest of the day worrying about this mystery and trying to get in touch with her son. Otis's Facebook page can still be found online, and it shows that he continued to make social media posts until June 16th of 2021. These social media posts offer dark and disturbing backstories into the case. One of them reads, "Cried, y'all. I had been blinded so much by my aunt, she's so terrible, for some land that we didn't want. We don't need money, I got her." Other posts implicated other family members in heinous acts, and Otis's family believes that a relative of his may have something to do with his unusual disappearance. On June 16, 2021, Otis's truck was found abandoned on US 83 near Aspermont, Texas, around 190 miles from Fort Worth. According to reports, witnesses recalled seeing an unknown man matching Otis's description getting out of the truck on June 16th with 2 dogs. Weeks later, a missing suitcase belonging to Otis was found in Paducah, Texas, around 63 miles from where his truck was found abandoned. The last clue that could help solve the mysterious disappearance of Otis was found on August 3rd, 2021, when someone logged into his Facebook account in Corpus Christi, Texas, and changed his password. Criminal investigators continue to try and see this unsolved case get solved, using what little evidence they have. Otis Harris III is described as an African-American male with black hair, brown eyes, 5'9" to 5'10" and 305 pounds. He has a tattoo of a panther with the words mature and petite on his back, an owl on his right calf, and Trey on his left calf. Anyone with information is asked to contact Sheriff Bill Mullan of the Stonewall County Sheriff's Office at 940-989-3333. The strange disappearance of 58-year-old Bertha May Williams occurred in Forest Park, Ohio on March 18, 2021. Days prior, Bertha had confided in her sister with whom she was very close, that she and her boyfriend had gotten into an argument and had subsequently broken up. Bertha also told her sister that following the breakup, she had been staying at the house of some people who were friends. There are not many details surrounding her disappearance, but for some reason it wasn't until June of 2021, 2 months after she was last seen, that a missing person report was filed by her sister, who did not live in Ohio and had to travel. Ever since Bertha was reported missing to the Forest Park Police Department, there has been little movement in her case, and her family is extremely concerned for her welfare. The Forest Park Police Department announced to the press that Bertha was known to frequent Walnut Hills in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that she may also be found at the Park Eden building. Case investigators were not allowed to comment on her medical history, such as what type of medication or what kind of condition she has, only that Bertha May Williams is described as an African-American female with black hair, brown eyes, 5 foot to 5'1", and 150 to 170 pounds. Bertha's friends and family remain desperate for answers to this mystery that investigators so far have not been able to give. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Forest Park Police Department at 513-595-5220, quoting her missing person case number of 2021-100915. The disappearance of Fatima Muhamad Ali is one of the strangest unsolved missing person cases in recent years, and CCTV footage captured months later may have only made the case even more mysterious. Fatima was a happily married mother and grandmother living in New Haven with her husband, Mohammed. According to Mohammed, their family was the only Asian family in the village, and they were all well liked by their neighbors. Fatima worked from Monday to Thursday as an electronics assembler at Brightwall Dispensers, but Fridays were her day off. It was Friday, the 12th of February 2016, when she went about her morning routine and then woke her husband. Mohammed left for work before 8 a.m., fully expecting for Fatima to be found at home when he returned at 1 p.m. Fatima liked to keep her usual routines, and she could usually be found spending her Fridays at home, cooking, watching TV, and never missing her prayers. When Mohammed returned home, the house was silent. Fatima was missing from home, which was highly unusual. His daughter wondered if her missing mother could be found at the salon for a last-minute appointment, but none of the people there had seen her all day. He then discovered that Fatima had somehow vanished without a trace, without taking her phone, purse, or car keys, adding an even greater sense of urgency to this strange mystery. With this circumstantial evidence, police opened a missing person case on the same day. A few days later, CCTV footage from a residential street uncovered a bizarre scenario that has not been explained. Fatima was spotted walking past a house shortly after 8 a.m. on the day she went missing. In this sighting, the missing woman was wearing a beige overcoat and looked like she was walking with purpose to a destination unknown. The CCTV footage raised almost as many strange questions as her initial disappearance. The road would eventually lead to the coast, but her family didn't believe she would take her own life. She had shown no signs of depression beforehand, and the trip seemed completely unusual. The belief that Fatima could still be found alive was further bolstered by another alleged missing person sighting in August of 2017. A friend who had worked with Fatima spotted a woman she believed was her old coworker in a rush to catch a bus in Brighton, 9 miles away from where she had once lived. Police later received CCTV footage from the location. Unfortunately, the video only showed the unidentified woman from behind. Fatima's family are uncertain if the woman is the same missing person, but confessed that she did walk and wear her hair as Fatima did. If the sighting is Fatima, then police investigators suspect she could have left her family to start fresh somewhere else. However, detectives have been unable to confirm if this is the case, and for now, the family continues to search for answers in this unsolved mystery. Dr. Sam Dubal was highly respected in his role as an assistant professor of anthropology at the University of Washington. Those who knew Sam described him as a sensible and hard-working man, which makes his mysterious disappearance all the more bizarre. Before he went missing on October 9th, 2020, he told people in his family that he was going on a one-day solo hike at the Mount Rainier National Park. He also said that he would not be found missing from home for very long, but unfortunately, that was not the case. Other hikers in Mount Rainier that day recalled seeing Sam on the Mother Loop Mountain Trail, a somewhat dangerous national park trail. Sam was no stranger to the wilderness, and he made sure to pack adequate equipment and warm clothing for what he was about to face. When October 12, 2020 came around, and he'd still vanished without a trace, he was reported missing, and park rangers began to search for a missing person in the woods. Over the course of 9 days, park rangers and other wildlife authorities scoured miles of national park forests and only found Sam's car and water bottle. It was as if he'd simply disappeared into the wilderness. After 9 days, the search for Sam was called off due to bad weather. And since then, despite more volunteer searches for him in the woods, the missing person has never been found. Dr. Sam Dubal is described as an Asian American male with black hair, black eyes, 5'9" and 160 pounds. He was last seen wearing a blue North Face jacket and a navy blue North Face raincoat. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Mount Rainier National Park Service at 360-569-6612, quoting case number NP20146222. Angela K. Bartman of National City, Michigan, was 33 years old and a bit agitated when she left her house on February 9th, 2010. Before she went missing, she told people in her family that she was going to get gas, which never took very long, only to strangely vanish into the wilderness instead. After not returning home for 3 hours, the Michigan State Police were contacted and issued a missing persons alert the same day of her strange disappearance. Her mysterious case would not be solved until more than a week later, when her missing car and body were found in the wilderness 12 miles away. According to missing person reports, on February 17th at 10 p.m., Angela Bartman was found in the woods roughly 300 yards away from her 2010 blue Jeep Compass, which had run out of gas and had gotten stuck in the snow. Detectives did not find any evidence of a crime and determined that she had strangely wandered into the woods only to vanish into the wild and perish from the cold. Angela's mother said her daughter did not take her medication on the day she went missing, which detectives think could have made her feel confused and explain why she went missing into the woods. Since the road she got stuck on was seldom traveled, her family believes she was trying to find her way back to town and became a missing person in the forest instead. Angela can rest in peace and enjoy her sunshine. Her family would later write of her solved case as they came to terms with her abrupt and unexpected ending. The mysterious disappearance of Meredith Emerson is a strange but true story of unbelievable horror. On January 1st, 2008, 24-year-old Meredith Emerson was hiking the highest peak of Georgia's Appalachian Trail when she became a missing person mystery. Her case would be solved days later with the sad and unexpected ending. Though she was a new Georgia resident fresh from Colorado, she had gone jogging in the national parks of Georgia before, was familiar with this trail, and was an experienced hiker in general. While returning down the Appalachian Trail, another hiker on the path, an older man, surprised her with a blade and demanded her ATM card. What this scary person didn't know was that their seemingly easy target had a strong martial arts background and was willing to defend herself to the very end. After a long struggle, the much smaller woman was finally overpowered and led to the back of a van, where she went missing for days. While people wondered where she went, and as investigators worked to solve her missing person case, Meredith spent a number of days held by a very scary person who kept trying to get money from an ATM with her card. She never stopped struggling against him with all of her might, and kept giving him the wrong PIN number a number of times, each day asking for more time to correctly remember. She most likely feared that he might have no use for her anymore and could end her life if she gave him the right pen. Within 4 days of her mysterious disappearance, crime investigators had found the unusual activity on her ATM card and were ready to make an arrest. By this time, they'd also found her missing car at the bottom of the trail and had expanded their missing person search to a 5-mile radius in all directions. Lastly, investigators had obtained a description of a person of interest seen with Meredith on the Appalachian Trail on the same day she went missing. They later found this person at a convenience store and took him to the station. When questioned by authorities in a police interview, Gary Michael Hilton made a shocking criminal confession. Shortly before he had ended her life on January 5th, he had simply told Meredith that she was finally going home. On January 7th, he led investigators to the missing body of Meredith Emerson, who he had left in the national park. Gary Michael Hilton also confessed to being responsible for other missing person cases as well. In October of 2007, the lives of John and Irene Bryant were ended in the Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina. 2 months later, a nurse named Cheryl Dunlap met an unexpected ending at another national forest in Florida. He has since been sentenced to capital punishment for these strange and mysterious national park disappearances. The strange disappearance of Rick Hills, who went missing in the woods of Alaska, is truly one of the most mysterious missing person cases of all time, with an unexpected ending you'll never believe is real. On February 24, 2004, 35-year-old oil rigger Rick Hills left his home to pick up a paycheck in Anchorage. The company he worked for would later confirm to law enforcement investigators that Rick had visited the Anchorage office on the same day that he became a missing person. His missing car was found abandoned on the side of the road and out of gas 2 days later on February 26th. Found in his car were hundreds of dollars and his wallet, all untouched. Strangely, a single set of footprints went from his car into the Alaskan wilderness and vanished without a trace. About a half-mile before his footprints disappeared, they became different, as if he was dragging his leg. Sniffer dogs were able to continue tracking the missing person's scent, and detectives determined that he first went out of the forest and to someone's home, most likely to ask for help. After that, he went to an old private airport that had been abandoned. His missing person case would continue to go unsolved for another 10 years, and this is where the evidence gets really strange. When the missing body was first found in 2005, police detectives did not think it was Rick Hills for one good reason. The remains were found 300 yards from the residence of someone else who had gone missing, a different person named Richard Bennett. Like Rick Hills, Richard Bennett was in his 30s and had gone missing around the same time. Richard's worried family did not want to wait a year and a half for a DNA test, and asked the police to make an educated guess. Police believed these to be the remains of Richard Bennett because, aside from being found close to his home, they also showed a fracture in the right leg that matched a motorcycle mishap. In 2006, when the DNA results tested positive for Rick Hills, detectives were stumped. As it turns out, Richard Bennett and Richard Ricky Hill had not only shared the same name, but also went missing in the same area, and both had fractures in the right leg. Rick's was from a hockey match. While the mysterious disappearance of Rick Hills has come to a close, the strange disappearance of Richard Bennett remains unsolved. Anyone with information on this missing person case should contact the Alaska Department of Public Safety at 907-269-5581, citing case number 0500-735-48. He would now be 57 years old. On June 17, 1975, 71-year-old Milda Dahl McKillen would disappear into the wilderness under strange circumstances, leaving her family with more questions than answers. In her investigation, detectives would learn she left her home in Ponsford, Minnesota, to visit friends 18 miles away from home. Her vehicle was spotted by other motorists as she drove out onto the East Bad Medicine Lake Road. Her friends did not think much of it when she didn't visit on that night, but her family reported her as a missing person case days later to the Becker County Sheriff's Office. Detectives knew the roads that Milda had been on were unpaved and learned from witnesses that she had stalled at the side of the road due to a mudslide. These are the last known sightings of Milda, and what happened to her after that remains a mystery. They soon found her car abandoned on a logging road close to Detroit Lakes, stuck in the mud in a heavily wooded area. Bizarrely, the friends she was visiting lived nearby, and it's unknown why she didn't go to their house for help. Days after Milda was reported missing, her belt and scarf were discovered in an area that had already been thoroughly searched. Her family would later go on to say how they believed that these items were planted to throw investigators off the trail. On the day of her disappearance, the couple she was going to see had another visitor, a man who they were friends with and also expecting. They remember how soaked his clothes were, absolutely drenched, as if he had possibly been in the wilderness. Investigators speculated that the sodden clothes were caused by walking in long grass, like the grass where Milda's car was found abandoned, but no further connections have ever been made. Milda Dahl McKillen is described as a white female with brown hair, blue eyes, 5'3" and 130 pounds. She wears glasses and was last seen wearing a blue and white striped t-shirt, a blue jacket, blue pants, and a gold wedding ring. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Becker County Sheriff's Office at 218-847-2661, quoting case number 05000150B. 31-year-old Lloyd Raymond Gilsdorf Jr. was last seen at the downtown bus station in Pensacola, Florida, on July 29, 1984. Lloyd had recently gotten divorced and was feeling rather down on his luck. Sometime in late July, Lloyd received a phone call that would change his life. A mysterious voice on the other end of the phone told Lloyd that he had a job going at an oil company in Houston, Texas. Lloyd jumped at the chance to work for an oil company and immediately accepted the offer. On July 29th, he called his parents to let them know that he would be moving away for a while for his new job. He also told them that he'd received a prepaid bus ticket from Pensacola to New Orleans, Louisiana. From here, a representative from the company would collect him and take him to the job site. His parents were excited and supportive. Lloyd said goodbye to his parents and headed for downtown Pensacola. From here, he boarded his scheduled bus to New Orleans, but his parents never heard from him again. His parents were not too worried at first, believing that he was just getting settled into his new position. But when months passed without any contact, they knew something was wrong. Lloyd's mother sent a prepaid bus ticket to the mysterious man in Houston, but the ticket was returned days later as the letter was deemed undeliverable. It was at this point that Lloyd's parents knew something had gone terribly wrong. In January of 1985, Lloyd was finally reported missing to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. There had been multiple attempts to track down the mysterious man in Houston, but so far, these leads had been fruitless. Lloyd's parents believed that he was intentionally lured to a Pensacola bus station, but the question is, by who? He'd recently gone through a divorce, but his parents couldn't think of anyone that would want to harm him. 2023 marks the 39th anniversary of his disappearance. If still alive today, Lloyd would be 70 years old. Lloyd Raymond Gilsdorf Jr. is described as a white male with brown hair, blue eyes, 5'6" to 5'7" and 160 to 165 pounds. Anyone with information is asked to contact James Lee of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 850-436-9651, quoting case number 84017-018. 25-year-old Aaron Cody Fortner was last seen on February 21, 2022, at his home in Sylva, North Carolina. Aaron's parents reported that he was living in a trailer at the family home in the 100 block of Fox Trace Road. Aaron had been battling alcoholism and was trying his best to stay sober. Shortly before his disappearance, Aaron had begun exhibiting symptoms of extreme paranoia. He was convinced that someone or something was out to get him. Between 1 and 2 a.m., he called his grandparents, who also lived on the property. Aaron mumbled his words in these calls and was talking strange. The reception was intermittent, and he often got cut off due to bad cell reception. His last known sighting was around 2:30 a.m., and after that, he vanished. Following these bizarre calls, his sister, Courtney K. Biddix, went to Aaron's trailer to try to calm him down, but there was no sign of him. When she entered the trailer, she noticed that all the lights were on, and Aaron had left his electric blanket on too. She also described seeing the state of the trailer as being ransacked. However, Aaron's bag, wallet, keys, and phone charger were all left behind in the trailer. Just meters from the trailer, Courtney found her brother's hat, which he rarely left the house without. An immense wave of panic washed over the Fortners, and in the wee hours of February 21st, 2022, they contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and reported him missing. Officers were immediately dispatched to the scene and began what they described as a boots-on-the-ground operation. The family home on Fox Trace Road is around 3 square miles from the Great Smoky Mountains, and investigators began to focus their efforts there. By February 26, 2022, the boots-on-the-ground operation had been called off after investigators failed to find any sign of Aaron. Over 100 volunteers, fire departments, search and rescue teams, and a swift water team turned out in the search for Aaron. Courtney, Aaron's sister, told the media that they don't believe he ran away. His mother, Christina Biddix, wrote a heartfelt Facebook post saying, quote, "If it takes the rest of my life, I will look for you till my last breath. I ask God to take me and bring my son home. I've experienced pain in my life and I thought I couldn't break, but this is breaking me." Aaron Cody Fortner is described as a white male with brown hair, brown eyes, 5'7" to 5'9", and 130 to 140 pounds. Anyone with information is asked to contact Special Agent Shannon Ash of the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation at 828-330-4678, quoting case number 2022-00606. 22-year-old Tawny Marie Turner was described as having a magnetic personality. Tawny was well known in the Pittsburgh art scene, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who didn't like her. Tawny could often be found teaching a ceramics class or at a local concert when not working as a fabricator. Tawny's zest for life and creative abilities made her stand out. When Tawny disappeared without a trace, the artistic community of Pittsburgh came together to find one of their own. On December 30th, 2019, Tawny spent the afternoon at the Dobra Tea Shop, one of Tawny's local haunts. At around 6 p.m., Tawny left the tea shop and headed for a bus stop. She lived in an apartment in Hazelwood, around 4 miles from the tea shop, in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood. A bus driver saw Tawny that evening, waiting for a bus at her regular stop at Hazelwood Avenue and Giddings Street. From there, Tawny had a short walk to her home but never made it. While Tawny was making her way home, she was on the phone with her sister and there was no indication that anything was wrong. When Tawny failed to return home and contact her family, they panicked. On December 31st, 2019, Tawny's family received a call from a firefighter who had found Tawny's purse, shoes, wallet, and phone, and a ceramic pot. This anonymous man told Tawny's family that he was walking across the Homestead Grays Bridge at around 8:30 p.m. on December 30th when he saw her belongings on the side of the road. He had contacted her family, hoping to return the items, but this call only confirmed the worst. Tawny's family promptly reported her missing to the Pittsburgh Police Department, and a search was underway. Investigators speculated that Tawny might have walked down Interstate 80 to get home. There was no sign of a struggle or what may have happened to Tawny on the bridge. The communities of Pittsburgh rallied behind Tawny's family. Murals were made in her honor, and dozens of volunteers turned out to hand out leaflets and garner media attention. There have been a few leads in Tawny's case, but according to the Pittsburgh Police Department, none have panned out. December of 2023 will mark the 4th anniversary of Tawny's disappearance, and her family is desperate to find out what happened to her. Anyone with information is asked to contact Detective Julie Ott of the Pittsburgh Police Department at 412-323-7800, quoting case number 19-264-396. 34-year-old Maria Nina Miller moved from her native Philippines to the US in the early 2000s. By 2005, she had met and married Kenneth Miller, a US Army recruiter. Kenneth's work meant that he traveled around Virginia a lot, leaving Maria at her home in Norfolk, Virginia. In 2010, Kenneth was transferred to Towanda, Pennsylvania, over 440 miles away. Maria stayed by his side and was slowly beginning to settle into her new life. Just a year later, she would disappear under bizarre circumstances. Maria was last seen on February 4th, 2011, at the Dandy Mini Mart where she worked. Those who worked with Maria described her as a gentle, kind woman who was devoted to her son. She would call her son to ensure he was okay when she worked the evening shifts. On February 4th, she told her bosses that she would be taking 2 days off as Kenneth's mother was in a Charleston, West Virginia hospital. She planned to return to work by February 7th, but was never seen or heard from again. A missing person report was not filed until June of that year. According to the Charlie Project, it was not Kenneth that filed the report, but the Army. When approached by Pennsylvania state troopers, Kenneth claimed that while in the car park in Charleston Medical Center where his mother was, the two got into an argument. During the argument, Maria demanded Kenneth take her to Virginia Beach, and Kenneth obliged. Kenneth claims that the last time he saw his wife was when he dropped her off outside an apartment complex in Virginia Beach. Investigators began the search for Maria and were distrustful of Kenneth's accounts. Despite numerous searches, no sign of Maria has ever been found. Anyone with information is asked to contact Trooper Christopher King of the Pennsylvania State Police at 570-697-2000, quoting case number P05071. 0879. 22-year-old Judith Lynn Thrickeld was last seen on March 8, 1976, just a half mile from her Silver Creek, New York home. On that breezy March afternoon, Judith had just finished up at the Anderson Lee Library and was heading to her home on Central Avenue. According to the Post-Journal, the distance between her home and the library was just a half mile, a walk that should have taken her around 15 minutes. Judith's parents and brother Danny anticipated her arrival, but sadly, Judith never made it home. Earlier that afternoon, Danny came across his sister while she was making a short walk home. He motioned for his sister to jump in the car with him, but she declined, saying she preferred walking. That snap decision changed their lives forever, and Judith was gone in an instant. When Danny arrived home, he waited for his sister to walk through the front door, but that didn't happen. When nightfall came, the family reported their daughter missing and began searching for her. Danny, Judith's brother, told the Post-Journal that in the wake of her disappearance, the family received multiple calls from people who claimed to have seen Judith. These sightings came from Erie, Buffalo, and across the state of New York. Unfortunately, these leads never panned out, and the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office is still none the wiser 47 years later. The Silver Creek Police Department is now incorporated with the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office, which adds further complexity to the case. In 2022, the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office announced that they'd uncovered a new lead in the case. The Unsolved Crimes Unit came across Judith's name while reading through the case file of an unrelated homicide. No further comments have been made regarding this lead. In February of 2023, the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office announced they were seeking information about a white GMC dump truck driven by a white man in his 20s with sandy hair. Judith's parents have since passed away, never knowing what happened to their only daughter. Judith's three brothers, Danny, John, and Henry, are left to carry the torch for their sister. Judith Lynn Thrickeld is described as a white female with brown hair, blue eyes, 5'11" and 130 pounds. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office at 716-753-4232, quoting case number 2218463. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.